Hey everyone, Dr. Jessica Schneider here. I am going to take a chance to review my annual blood work that I actually run on myself, and I thought it might be interesting to talk through it on video. So I have not looked at these results yet, so it's going to be interesting to see how they look this year. Blood work. So this is something that I recommend annually for all of my patients in addition to myself. It's the best way to look proactively at what's going on inside the body with the organs, specifically related to vitamin levels, insulin resistance, inflammation, things like that. So even though I consider lifestyle to be really important in telling a lot about a person's health and wellness, blood work is equally as important in another piece of the puzzle. So let's go ahead and get started. And I've seen all of this blood work on myself before about a year ago, and so it's always interesting to see what changes. So the first thing that I'm looking at here is my thyroid function. So my TSH is nice in the normal range, and I like to see that under 2.5. So in conventional medicine, there's a much wider range for what is normal for a TSH, often from 0.45 to 4.5. But in functional medicine, we understand that a narrower range might be actually more physiologic. And so mine's sitting at a great spot at 0.843. And I also look at the free thyroid hormones, so free T4, which is normal, and free T3, it's on the back page here. Now my free T3 is actually pretty low, so that's interesting. Sometimes this can indicate a zinc deficiency or selenium deficiency, so I may consider having myself take some of those. And you can get selenium in food sources, so actually Brazil nuts are a great bioavailable source of selenium, so I could take some of those. Low free T3 can contribute to feeling a little bit more fatigued, constipation, hair loss, dry skin, and so it's an important thing to be looked at in addition to a TSH if you are having any of those symptoms. Now, after looking at those, the next thing I have here is my CBC. So this is looking at my blood counts. My white blood cell count is normal, in a nice normal range. I actually see this low on a lot of females, and that tells me a little bit about their immune status, and they might be experiencing some oxidative stress. And so I'm happy to see that I don't see that on myself this year. My blood counts are in a normal range, so not in an anemic zone. And I have nice platelets. I'm also looking at the types of white blood cells. One thing that I check for is the amount of eosinophils in the blood. And eosinophils are some of our white blood cells that actually look specifically at sensitivities. I also think about parasitic infections if I see an elevation in eosinophils. So food allergies, sensitivities, and parasitic infections, a lot of information about gut health in here, and mine is in the normal range, which is good. And then I'm looking at a metabolic panel, so I've got blood sugar on here, kidney function, liver function, which everything is looking normal. Now I tend to run a little bit elevated on my bilirubin. Sometimes we see this in a fasting state. This is also a sign of something that we call Gilbert's disease, which is a genetic mutation where you have a higher bilirubin level. And so this is always what I've seen on my own blood work, and it doesn't indicate any concerns for disease, so I'm not alarmed by that. Now I do check a urine. I'm looking to make sure that there's no blood protein or glucose in the urine, which can indicate more concerning pathology related to the kidneys, and I have negative for those things. Next on here is my cholesterol profile. Now I tend to have very high HDL, and I can thank my parents for that. It is genetic, and so my HDL is at 87. My LDL is actually lower than my HDL at 78. So this is a very good genetic profile. A lot of this has to do with how I eat, but it's also, like I said, there's a big component of genetics here. I tend to run very low on my triglycerides, and this is something I'm at actually 36. This is a little bit too low. And so most of the time, so triglycerides are the fat in our blood, and it's different from cholesterol. We do need fat in our body as an energy source. And mine tend to be fairly low, and I eat a lot of fat. Avocados, olive oil, nuts. I do like cheese in moderation. So I shouldn't be having a triglyceride level that's at 36. And so this does make me wonder about digestive enzymes. I am often eating in probably more of a sympathetic state, meaning that my adrenaline's elevated, I'm a little bit stressed, and so I probably should work on some deep breathing before meals and potentially adding in some digestive enzymes. Low triglycerides can also be contributed, come out as a symptom of fatigue, and so again, this is something for me to work on. Moving on, looking at my hemoglobin A1C. So this is a 3-month average of blood sugar, and mine is a 4.8. I like to see it less than or equal to a 5.4. So this is a very good number. My fasting glucose was actually a little bit elevated at 99, but this likely has to do with the fact that I got this blood work done later in the morning around 11 a.m. and at that time point in the day, my body has used some of my glycogen stores in order to replace sugar in my glucose in my bloodstream. And so this is a good thing, and I'm not alarmed by that. But the A1C of 4.8 is an outstanding number. And then the last marker that I look at related to that is fasting insulin level. Now my fasting insulin is at an 8.8. I would like to see that less than 8. And I know that for myself, I do have a sweet tooth, so sometimes I indulge in sweets at night, and so this is something that I could probably work on a little bit for myself, but is not alarming. My vitamin D levels at 47. Now being honest, I'm not so good with taking my supplements every single day, so I probably need to do a little bit better job. I'd like to see this above 50, so I will more regularly take my vitamin D. My CRP is at 0.82. This is very low risk for cardiovascular, and anything under 2 I consider a good number. As far as anything above 2 makes me think about metabolic inflammation and concerns for that. So I'm happy with my 0.82 level. Finally, I did grab a homocysteine level on myself. Now, homocysteine is also being used as a marker of cardiovascular risk, and I like to see it under 10, and I'm at a 6.2. This also gives me a little bit of information about my methylation pathways. And I've never tested the MTHFR gene mutations on myself, but I have low suspicion of that being an issue just based on my symptoms and my homocysteine level. The final thing on here, my vitamin B12 levels look great, and I am taking a supplement for that. Magnesium is normal. My ferritin is in a nice normal range, which is an iron storage protein. And I use it for females to measure how much iron loss is happening during menstruation, and then also looking for genetic mutations such as hemochromatosis. And finally, it's a marker of inflammation. So mine is in a normal range. So this is kind of the extent of the blood work that I recommend annually for patients. Again, doing a very proactive analysis, looking at multiple different organ functions, including insulin resistance and inflammation. Gives me a lot more information in addition to a physical exam and a lifestyle discussion, and being able to guide patients, including myself, on changes to make for the coming year. So I hope you found that interesting, and definitely reach out if you have questions or interested in having an assessment on yourself.